This season's anime is arguably the strongest one yet. There have been nothing but bangers, and you'll probably be keeping up with at least 2 to 3 shows in the lineup already with the dozens of sequels that are currently airing. And the new shows that come out are no slouches either. There are a wide variety of genres that any person can get into, and one of the many new additions is a show called Kemono Jihen, an anime that came out this season, if you couldn't tell, and is currently on its 7th episode at the time of this recording. And I'm enjoying it, I think. My thoughts on the show are kind of all over the place. On one hand, I think that it's pretty fun to watch, balancing action and comedy well enough, but on the other, it feels like there's a lot of lost potential in this premise. However, the main problem that arises from Kemono Jihen's execution of its genre is its rapidly swift pacing. The second that something interesting happens in the different jobs that the main cast tackles, the built-up sense of foreboding is relieved as soon as possible, making for very lackluster conclusions to each arc. For example, the central conflict of the first episode revolves around a rural town's livestock dying in unusual circumstances, their corpses decaying and internal organs eaten. Naturally, this presents an air full of tension and intrigue, which gets the audience excited to see a mystery thriller with supernatural and horrific elements mixed in. This anticipation is even spurred on by the arrival of a detective character by the name of Kohachi Inugami, who wants to investigate the cause of this bizarre situation. But after the problem is introduced to the viewers, it's concurrently resolved in a very anticlimactic way. And as soon as the start of the next episode, the main character is already on his way to Tokyo in order to join his detective acquaintance in solving cases for the Kemono Detective Agency. On its own, the design of the first mystery would be enough to make one hell of a hook. Throw in a few twists and turns to raise the stakes of the plot, as well as a few probing questions, and done correctly, this would result in maybe one of the best shows of all time. Definitely this season. But you saw the title of this video, and I'm not exactly satisfied. Perhaps it's a bit unfair of me to criticize the show for not capitalizing on something that it isn't really trying to be, but on my anime list, Kemono Jihen is listed as part of the mystery genre, and even if that wasn't the case, the synopsis on the website is so damn misleading that I just feel like I have to talk about this. This anime missed out on a huge opportunity. Half of the fun of watching a mystery thriller comes from the mystery, the process of slowly unraveling all of the secrets and components of the underlying problem through clue gathering and deductive reasoning. And yet, for an anime with an important detective character who works for a detective agency along with the main character, there's surprisingly little detective work. With every case the Kemono Agency tackles, the procedure that the characters take to save the day is painfully simple and redundant. Each episode usually has the cast follow this formula, investigate and brute force their way through. This anime doesn't want to take the time to make an actual mystery. It completely forgoes the setup, the scattered clues, the seemingly implausible methods behind the puzzle, the eureka moment, and the explanation of the methods used. So far, the only real mystery comes in the form of the latest reveal in the most recent episode. However, without spoiling anything, the audience is given an answer to the question before we even know what the question is. Everything is revealed to us before we even get the sense that something is off, and the only reason why we feel uncertainty in the current scenario is because one of the characters just randomly has a traumatizing flashback that reveals what the problem is. And again, because of the breakneck speed at which this show goes, right after we get a better understanding of the situation and some time to come to our suspicions are already confirmed by the next scene, where Inugami just gets the confession out of the supposed culprit like he already pieced it together but didn't bother showing all of his work. Dedicating time to reaching the answer step by step is one of the most important elements of not just a mystery show, but any show in general. Otherwise, the audience wouldn't feel accomplished or deserving when the protagonist eventually reaches his goal. Even if they did this correctly, the supernatural elements would kind of undermine the whole idea behind the mystery, because essentially every quote-unquote mystery could be solved by saying that an evil monster was behind it, and that wouldn't necessarily be a problem considering how this is also a shonen action series. But if that's what it's mainly marketing itself as, then, well, let's just say it should probably be trying a lot harder. That's not to say that its action is bad. The first episode had pretty great choreography, and there's a good sense of strategy, making for a natural push and pull dynamic, but compared to other anime in in this genre, I think it's fair to say that there's nothing really that stands out about this one in particular. The fight scenes primarily place focus on Kemono abilities. Kemono is a genre in Japanese medium that features anthropomorphic characters, and it roughly translates out to beast. The protagonist, Kabane, is a Hanyo, or a hybrid of demon and human heritage. So basically, he has demonic powers that he uses to exercise rampant and unruly Kemono. Naturally, with this kind of premise, you can expect some spooky imagery and horrific elements to liven things up, and that's definitely what you get, but a lot of the horrific imagery comes from a heavy reliance on shock value, literal jump scares. The anime never really tries to create a haunting atmosphere to keep the viewers on their toes, and after its first episode, the mood of the show is weirdly happy-go-lucky, where nothing really serious happens. This is fixed in episode 5, where the gang is sent to see what's going on at a suspicious hospital, but at this point, Kabane has already been established to be a major force of reckoning, to the point that nobody would logically feel threatened by what's coming next. It tries to remedy this through the use of frightening monster designs to send chills down people's spines, but again, we already know that the focus of the climax will be the fight between Kabane and the cool monsters, not the tension of seeing these characters struggle against unknown forces. There are genuinely tense moments when less powerful characters are at the center of danger, however these moments are undercut by strange bits of comedy that make the audience aware of the fact that nobody is really at risk. Speaking of strange, I don't really have a problem with most of the show, but one episode specifically made me go, huh? Episode 4 starts off with the detective agency getting another job request from a man who has fallen in love with a hostess running a bar. During the job, it's revealed that this hostess has been transforming the men who fawn over her into cats. I don't know if this is based off of anything in particular, but the closest thing that I found was the idea of the Nekomata, or the Baki Neko, which are cat-like yokai who have the ability to speak and possess humans. This is an inherently evil idea, one that has incredible potential to showcase some really intense and twisted imagery to... Wait, what are you doing? Why is this anime portraying something this dark and awful to be a weird love story about two people putting aside their differences? To be fair, it does have to do with Kabane's development as a character, but it's also really underwhelming for something that could have been much bigger. Something that Kemono Jihen does quite well is building a likable cast of characters. Kabane is the main reason why the group relationship works so well. Many of the jokes in the main group revolve around how blunt and emotionless he is. Character archetypes that would normally be annoying in other anime just aren't in this one. Kabane serves as the audience surrogate, so because he doesn't really care about anything, the people behind him don't find it enraging when he's being taken advantage of. This dynamic is really reminiscent of Mob Psycho, just with a sharper art style, but not quite as good animation. But then again, it's only been 7 episodes, so I should probably wait before making that kind of comparison. For all I know, this show could totally flop or blossom into one of the greatest shows of all time. For now, it's too early to tell, but what I can say is that I'm pretty disappointed, at least for now. I was really excited to watch a hidden gem among this year's greats, but I came out of the rough with a perfectly serviceable experience that I probably could have done without. Anyways, thanks for watching the video all the way through if you made it here, and hopefully I'll be in time for next week where I'm going to talk about something else. Until then.